All right, welcome back to our second part of our lesson for chapter 9.1. Um, in this part of the lesson, we're going to be talking about how do we find the perimeter of a semicircle. Now, a semicircle is just defined that, right, we take a circle, cut it in half, we just take one of the sections of it. You're going to notice that a semicircle is made up of a circular arc, right? There's this curved piece up top. And then on the bottom, obviously, we kind of have this straight line, and we're going to have to find the perimeter of that. So in order to do this, we're actually going to take kind of two parts to it, right? We're going to start with our circle, right? And we know that if I was looking for the circumference of a circle, all I would need to do would be to do pi times d or 2 pi r. And either one of those would get me to where I want to go. In the case of a semicircle, right? It's a little bit different in the fact that we don't have a full circle. We have half of a circle. If we look around the circular, right, that's half of the outside. So we're actually just going to take our two formulas and just divide them by 2, right? So I have pi over d divided by 2, or I get this 2 pi r divided by 2, which really then this is just pi times radius would get me the same thing. Right, this makes sense. I have half of a circle. I'm just going to take both of my formulas and divide them by 2 to kind of cut them in half. Okay, so in the case of this one, right, if I was to look at this, I'm going to use pi times diameter divided by 2. Right, I know that pi is 3.14. My diameter in this case is 6, right? That's what it tells me right there. And then I'm going to take, after I multiply that, I'm going to just divide it by 2. There's a bunch of different ways that you could go about doing this. Right, I'm just going to type into my calculator right here. 3.14 times 6 divided by 2. I get this answer of 9.42 meters. Now, again, this is the circumference of the circular arc part, right? It's not the full semicircle because I haven't done all the parts on the outside. Right? The other part that's on the outside is this straight line, which just happens to be the diameter, right? So I'm just going to take this 9.42 that I found for my circular region, right? So we've kind of done this part of it. And I just need to add then this straight away right here. To do that, I'm just going to add 6 meters to 9.42. I'm going to get 15.42 meters. If you ever see a semicircle, right, we should be thinking that I've got two different parts that kind of are going together. So I'm going to add those two together. All right. Here's a couple try problems for you to do. I want you to pause the video. Try and see if you can do that, right? We're looking at something like this, pi times diameter divided by 2, or you can just do pi times radius. And then remember, we just need to add on the diameter or the full straightaway section. All right, getting into this then, number 6 looks something like this. My diameter is 2 feet. I'm going to do pi times diameter divided by 2. This is going to be equal to 3.14 times 2 divided by 2. When I type that into a calculator, I'm just going to get 3.14 again. And then I just simply need to add this bottom section, and I get 5.14 feet. For number 7, I have a diameter, so I'm going to use pi times diameter divided by 2. Pi is equivalent to 3.14. In this case, my diameter is 7. And then I'm going to divide that all by 2. Typing that in, 3.14 times 7 divided by 2, I get 10.99. And then again, right, since it's a semicircle, we're just going to add back this straight line, which was 7 centimeters across. I'm going to get an answer of 17.99 centimeters. In number 8, I actually have a radius this time, so we're actually going to use the other one. Okay, my other one says that I can just use pi times the radius. And in this case, I'm going to do 3.14 times my radius of 15 inches. This is going to be equal to 47.1. I then need to add my diameter, my full section, right? So if I think about it, this section is 15, but also this other section is 15. So in total, this entire section is 30. And I'm adding the full length of the bottom side, 47.1 plus 30. Well, that's just going to be 77.1 inches. Right. That kind of concludes my little note sheet as far as everything. I do want to take a look at a couple of word problems just to kind of help us see what does a word problem look like? How can we go about solving these types of problems um, whenever you come across them, either in homework or like on a test or something. So in example 4, it says that the circumference of this roll of caution tape decreases 10.5 inches after a firefighter uses some of the tape. What is the radius of the roll after the firefighter uses the tape? Okay. Now, when we think about this, right, I see that I'm looking for a radius. That's what's missing. And I have circumference. So if I think about what equation that we have uses both circumference and radius, we end up kind of back at this, right? Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. Okay. So in this case, right, I see that currently my circumference, or sorry, before my circumference was 31.4 inches. And it's telling me that after the firefighter uses some, it decreases by 10.5. Right? Decrease means to subtract. So to start this off, we're looking at, okay, what is my actual circumference now? It was 31.4, but I'm going to take away 10.5 of that. Going through this, I get 9, 0, and 2. My new circumference after I've used the caution tape is 20.9. Okay, we're going to set that equal to 2 pi r. In this case, I'm going to kind of do some substituting. 2, I know that pi is 3.14. And then my radius is still missing. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I know my new circumference. Now I can go ahead and figure out what was actually the radius of that. Okay. A bunch of different ways you could do this. I'm going to start by actually just combining everything on the right side. Right, 2 times 3.14 gets me 6.28. If you want to divide both of them right away, you can also do that. But this way, I just have to divide once. Okay. Once I get here, I just need to divide both sides by 6.28. Your calculator, 20.9 divided by 6.28. And we end up getting this really long decimal. I'm just going to round at like the tenths place. I'm going to say that my radius is approximately equal to 3.3. At the squiggly equal sign, that just means it's about as close to, we've rounded. Okay, so when asked what is the radius of the roll after the firefighter uses some tape, we would say that the radius is about squiggly equal sign 3.3 inches. Yep. Right. Last little example here. Number 12 is looking at a monster truck and it's asking what is the distance that the monster truck travels when the tires make one 360-degree rotation. Now, we haven't necessarily talked about exactly what does 365 mean. I'm sure though, right, we've heard this in the past that 360 degrees is the same as like one full turn of something, right? If I turn 365 degrees on a skateboard, I've essentially done a circle and I've come back to where I started. Right? It almost kind of looks like this if I were to draw a little plane, and if I started here, I would go all the way around and I would actually just end up where I started. Okay, so what it's asking me here really to do is it's asking me, well, how far is that? Which is really just circumference. I need to figure out what is the circumference of that um, tire that's been going on. Okay, so it's giving me a diameter, so I know that my circumference, I'm going to use is just pi times diameter. I have diameter, I need circumference. That's the equation that contains both. Okay, now in that, right, my circumference is going to be equal to 3.14. That's my substitution for pi. My diameter of one tire is 66 inches. Okay, really then all I need to do is figure out what is my circumference by multiplying. In that, I would do 3.14 times 66, and I get 207.24 inches. That is how far, after one rotation of a tire, my monster truck has moved. Right, that is the end of lesson 9.1. Uh, Make sure that you've taken all your notes needed for this. All right. We talked about circumference of circles, but also the circumference of semicircles are very similar, right? I cut it in half, but then the biggest part that everyone seems to miss is adding that diameter back to my circumference. All right. We will get or we'll be right back in the next lesson video.